Hello. So this is a new addition to my tank. This is my new Royal Gramma Basslet. These guys are just gorgeous fish, and I have wanted one for the longest time. But whether it be issues with stocking, just not being a very good fit for what I had in the tank, or whether it be a case where I just haven't been able to find a healthy example. A lot of these guys I've seen have had like torn, ripped fins and just kind of in general just pretty beat up. So I was going through my local fish store the other day, and I always take a look at their Royal Grammas when they had them, but I didn't see any that were really particularly healthy. But as I was getting ready to leave, I happened to notice this guy in a tank with an aggressive clownfish, and he was, holding his own and everything. And so I was like, all right, this guy is in really good shape. He hasn't been beat up, ripped up, or anything like that. So I went ahead and picked him up. And although initially he was fairly shy and timid, and my Flameback Angel wasn't overly thrilled with having him, but he has, he's basically chilled out and kind of accepted him as a member of the tank now. Occasionally, once in a while, he'll do the, get out of my way sort of thing, but that's really about as, aggressive as he gets towards the Royal Gramma. And my Foxface doesn't care. As in a lot of cases, he just really doesn't care much. And has just basically just left any new addition that I've added to my tank in the last few years alone. I think he's been on his own a little bit, the Foxface has, and so he's actually glad to kind of have the company in there. So anyways, Royal Gramma Basslets as a whole, they're not a particularly aggressive fish, but I would say they are somewhere as a whole, on the borderline between peaceful and semi-aggressive. I would say that your odds of success will not be as good if you try and stick a Royal Gramma in a smaller tank with a bunch of very timid, very peaceful fish. Something like, some of the smaller gobies or like a firefish, something like that, I would say would not be as good of a tank mate for these guys, in large part because, they're not a particularly aggressive fish, but they can get a little bit territorial at times, and they are not afraid to stick up for themselves. At least the one that I have is definitely not. My Flameback Angel, I think I mentioned, gave him a little bit of a hard time when he first got in here, but nothing, like super aggressive with chasing around the tank or anything like that. Just more of a, get out of my way sort of thing. The funny thing is, though, is that the Royal Gramma is not afraid to do what a lot of people have noted about them, which is they have very large, wide mouths for the size of the fish that they are, and they're not afraid to open those wide and everything to make themselves look bigger and a little more threatening if somebody tries to challenge them. So it's really interesting because I've heard of some people who tell me that their Royal Grammas are, a lot of times they just kind of hang out and barely come out of the rock work. That hasn't been the case with mine. It's not an open, active swimmer, but he likes being out and just kind of hanging out above the rock work and just kind of, just seeing what's going on. Feeding wise, this guy, honestly, he reminds me a lot of a wrasse. He is not afraid to charge right into the fray, no matter how big the fish is. I've watched him rip food out of my Flameback Angel's mouth. So even though, as a whole, the Flameback Angel, does make him move in the regular activities in the tank, when it comes to feeding time, he does not care. He will get in there and make sure he gets more than his fair share of food. I feed enough that it's not any real issue with them, and everybody gets plenty to eat, so it's not a big deal. So bicolor dotty back, as I mentioned, I think is very similar in color to these, but a lot more aggressive. So the Royal Gramma Basslet is a wonderful alternative to them. So I would highly recommend these guys. Realistically, the 90 gallon that I have here is way more than enough than these guys need. I would say realistically, probably, even you could probably go with the right setup and the right stocking, even with the likes of maybe even down to a 20 long for these guys. You just would want to make sure you have that 2.5 to at least 3 foot space. So I would say, a 40 breeder would be a great size for these guys if you're looking for something maybe a little bit, smaller than a 90 or a 75 or whatever. But of course, they work great in larger tanks like this. And as I said, he's more or less, adapted and become a regular member of the tank. The other 2 fish, for the most part, just kind of ignore him. But he, for whatever reason, he does seem to want to be part of the crew. So he is kind of curious about them, and as he's gotten more comfortable in the tank, he does want to try and at least kind of hang out on the same side of the tank with the foxface or the flameback. But he does get a bit nervous if they start coming in his general direction a little bit quickly. He might dart a little bit or whatever. But that is perfectly normal for smaller size fish like this guy. But anyways, as I said, really happy to have him, and just been a welcome addition to the tank. So colorful, just beautiful fish with that purple-yellow combination that they have. And I'm just really happy to have this addition to the tank, and that he's wanting to hang out and do stuff with the other fish and be out and visible. And that's all I got, and thanks for watching.